Nick Fuentes, yeah, he was interviewed by a police officer in front of his house, or on, on the side of his house, and supposedly there were some crazy hysterical women in front of the house, and the cops talked to them before, and these women were saying he hates women, and they were all just hysterical and shaky and just acting crazy. And obviously those women, let's be real here, those women were up to no damn good. All right, like, what are you doing there? Why are you near this guy's house? You hate this guy so much. Why in the hell are you near his house? It's just insanity. But feminists are like that. You know, they're just freaking annoying. I don't like Nick Fuentes. I think he's a Nazi. I'll just say it. But don't go in front of people's houses. Just don't. I don't give a shit how much you disagree with them. I don't care what joke they posted online. Don't be going to people's houses uninvited. Don't be going in front of people's homes and making weird gestures and harassing people. Just don't do that. It's so stupid. And you only, listen, you don't help your cause by doing that, and you only give your enemy more material against you, because then they're going to say you're hysterical and crazy and you feminists and leftists are mentally ill. And Nick Fuentes definitely appeared as the more sane one. Nick Fuentes definitely appeared as the more cool and collected one. And so this is a win for him. Now, this is a win for him. So it doesn't really help your anti-racist or anti-sexist ideology. Now, I was thinking about this as I was watching the body cam footage, and I thought about this more after watching the body cam footage, and that is, why in the hell would you want to be famous? Being famous is actually kind of dangerous. Let's be real here. If you're famous on the internet, especially if you are famous for making controversial statements, you are in danger, potentially. There's a very good chance that people are stalking you. There's a very good chance that people want to find out where you live and come to your house. There is a very good chance that people just want to find out where you are and track you down. And they are people who become obsessed with personalities, famous personalities, be they actors, be they singers, especially musicians. I think there's a lot of crazy stalking culture for musicians. So because I think music just has so much of a deeper emotional impact than films do, that people just lose their minds when they see their famous singer, when they see a famous singer that they adore, who makes music that hypnotizes them like magic. People lose their minds. People cry when they see the singer. I mean, it gets crazy. So people want to know, where does the singer live? You have these stalkers who want to know, where does the singer live? I want to see her or his house. Or if you're a very famous actor and you have a very strong cult of personality. So it's not so much that you're a famous actor, it's that you're a famous actor with a cult of personality. And I think those two go hand in hand. You have to have a cult of personality to be famous. And this is applied to cinema, music, streaming, any sort of business where you are doing artistic expression or ideological expression. You have to have a cult of personality. That crazy woman has quite the early life. Well, there you go. I'm not surprised. So if people, it's like Keanu Reeves, right? Keanu Reeves has a huge cult of personality. He probably has the biggest cult of personality in all of the acting world. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Tom Cruise, Leonardo DiCaprio. I think these guys, these actors, while they are famous and rich, they don't have nearly the cult of personality that Keanu Reeves has. Keanu Reeves has just an immense cult of personality because he has this persona and this air about him that exudes this idea that he's famous and rich, but he's down to earth. people love that, and they get drunk off of that for some reason. Tom Cruise is famous, and he's a very well-known actor, and he's very wealthy. But like you said, he's a Scientologist, right? As Goose Hunter here says, he's a Scientologist, and he's very arrogant, and he's very temperamental. Same thing goes for Christian Bale, famous actor, but known to have a temper, and people don't like that. But if you're a famous person, but you're down to earth, you're just a regular guy, people just lose their minds over that. I think if you're a famous actor or any famous person, I think the worst thing you can do is try to bash a famous president and be like, I hate Donald Trump, because then half the country is going to hate you, and then you lose that market. So marketing-wise, not a very good idea. But I also think that if you're a famous person and you have a huge cult of personality, I think that the best thing that you can do is just be an average person. Act like a normal person. Go to the grocery store, go to a restaurant, go to Burger King, McDonald's, something. Have the paparazzi take photos of you. Oh, look, he's at McDonald's. And then you get the masses, the droves of his fans coming along and saying, can a man just eat a Big Mac without you assholes harassing him? Let him be. That's the Keanu Reeves effect. But you know, Keanu Reeves had a stalker. And there was a woman, I believe, who broke into his house one day. And he saw her. And he acted super nice to her. And was acting as if he was going to have a long and deep conversation with her. And put her at ease. Brought her guard down. And what she didn't know was that Keanu was contacting the cops. And the cops came and boom, arrested her, and that was that. So looking at but you see, Nick Fuentes is nowhere near as famous as Keanu Reeves. But he is famous enough that he has stalkers and enemies, a lot of enemies. I don't like Fuentes' ideology, but he is a very controversial person. You know, that goes without saying. And anytime you get into controversy, there's always something that you can expect, and that is haters. People who are going to hate you. And I don't mean just disagree with you. Like, I disagree with Fuentes. I don't hate Fuentes. I don't agree with harassing him, nor do I agree with harassing anybody. I don't think you should harass anybody. I don't think you should heckle people. I don't believe in heckling. I don't believe in heckling. I don't believe in harassing. I don't believe in going to people's houses and harassing them. Like what they did to, do you guys remember Richard Spencer? Remember Richard Spencer, the Nazi guy, the racist guy? He was a white identitarian. There were people harassing his mom and shit. Like, that's just fucking evil. Why do you, why do that? Like, I don't like Spencer. I don't agree with his ideology. I think his ideology is destructive and dangerous. But don't go harassing people. And there's two reasons why I don't agree with harassing or doing any sort of intrusive behavior against anybody. One, it's immoral. That's first and foremost. It's immoral. It is. It's immoral to go and harass people and go to their homes. I don't care how famous they are. I don't care how rich they are. I don't care how much you don't like them. You don't go around harassing people. Because right when you start normalizing that behavior, then you start normalizing it for everybody else. Pretty soon, some guy who's obsessed with the girl, he's going to go to her house and find out where she lives and call her ass all the time and annoy the hell out of her. And it's just, it promotes a very toxic and very intrusive and very just destructive behavior. It does. It promotes a very destructive behavior. It's not good. It's just not good. So for one thing, it's immoral. Let's get that out of the way. Secondly, it actually helps them. So if you don't like Fuentes, or if you don't like Spencer, or their ilk, or anyone like them, and you go around harassing them, who looks good in this situation? Who looks good in this situation? Not you. The person that you are harassing looks good. And when you watch the police body cam footage, Fuentes looks like the better person. The woman is hysterical, annoying, just erratic, agitated, on the edge. Not someone you really want to hang out with. You don't want to hang out with someone who's hysterical, because those people will flip on you. So Fuentes says, you want to talk to me, officer? Well, I want to go to the backyard because I don't want to be in her... I don't want to be able to be seen by her. I don't want to be heard by her. So let's go to my backyard. The cop doesn't want to go to the backyard. So then Fuentes says, okay, give me your card. Blah, blah, blah. And he's the victim. Exactly. He is the victim because he is being harassed. So then what happens? He gets more media attention. He gets publicity. And then you have people say, wow, look, this guy is being harassed by this annoying ass feminist. Who? What? Who's Nick Fuentes? I think I'm going to be on his side. So it actually helps the side that you claim to be against. When you harass anybody, you help that person's cause. Some thug from the Encyclopedia Dramatica or Kiwi, I don't know what you're referring to. Not that I agree with their social Darwinian views. Arguably, both figures deserve to be insulted but not murdered. I mean, Richard Spencer is a sellout. How's he a sellout? How's he a sellout? I'm interested to know. Seems like Richard Spencer has always been quite consistent with his ideology. He's still a racist. He believes in abortion. He has always believed in abortion. He's anti-Russian. I think he has always been within that strand of politics that we call neoconservatism. There's a photo of him and there's a photo that you can see of Spencer and Barbara Bush together. So I think he comes from that world of neoconservatism. So him being anti-Russia is consistent with that ideology. Richard Spencer, not Robert Spencer. No, I'm talking about Richard Spencer. And he was telling everybody to vote for Kamala Harris. Now you'll say, well, that's just liberal of him, and you would be right, but the reason why he supported Kamala Harris is because Kamala Harris is pro-choice, and I think Kamala Harris is anti-Russia, and Trump has at least presented himself as someone who wants peace with Russia, and Spencer doesn't like that. So Spencer has... I mean, for the most, I'm sure you can find inconsistencies with his language or with what he has said, but I think for the most part he has been quite consistent. He's a racist. He's pro-choice. He's anti-Russia. He has some remnant of neoconservatism, at least some remnant of neoconservatism in him. I don't know. I just see a good old-fashioned liberal. That's what I see when I see Spencer. Pro-abortion, check. Believes in evolution, check. Believes in some sort of welfare state, check. Believes in some form of socialism, check. Anti-Russia, which is consistent with both the neoliberal and neoconservative worldviews, check. So I don't really see a massive difference. The only difference I would say between the Spencer of the past and the Spencer now is that the Spencer of the past was much louder than the Spencer of the present. Spencer today is very quiet and has kind of brought himself into obscurity. But I remember reading about how they were harassing his mom. I didn't like that. So just because somebody is a racist doesn't mean you harass his mom. Doesn't mean you harass him. You debate him, sure. You try to expose him, sure. But don't go around harassing people. That's just immoral. It's like the punch. One of the things that got Spencer famous was getting punched in the face. You guys remember that? Some Antifa guy punched him in the face. Now, was that guy an agent? Was that guy an agent provocateur? Was he actually a right-winger dressed up as an Antifa guy to make the Antifa people look bad? I don't know. But the fact is that he got punched. And then you had all these lefties online saying, oh yeah, punch a Nazi. And all that did was it helped the cause of the far right. That's all it did. The news from Germany, yes. I've seen the news from Germany. We just got done talking about that. You're a little too late. So, back to what I was saying. I was thinking to myself yesterday, it's not good to be famous. It's not. I mean, fame is sort of something that, not sort of, it's something that a lot of people want. A lot of people want fame. Tons of people would give away a lot of things to become famous. They would sell their own soul to be famous. A lot of people would. Fame is something that everybody wants. Not everybody, but a lot of people want. But do you really want to be famous? So let's say you become famous and now tons of people are looking at you. Tons of people are watching your videos. Tons of people are watching your interviews. Or you have people watching your every move. And they're obsessed with you, or they want to marry you, or they want your baby. You know, they like all sorts of people are going to be weirdly and oddly obsessed with you. But is that what you really want? Because once you become famous, it's all eyes on you. And that means that you have a lot of people who love you, but you also have a lot of people who hate you. And you also have people who are so hysterically obsessed with you that they may love you in one moment, but in the next moment, you may piss them off for whatever reason. And then all of a sudden, they hate you with the same level of energy that they loved you with. And those people are the most dangerous. And so you end up with stalkers. And you got people in front of your house. And once you have people in front of your house, then you feel like your whole sense of individuality has been violated. Because your home is supposed to be your dome. You know, the word dome and the word home, I think, are interconnected, since the English language is rooted in the Proto-Indo-European language. And I know I have some Russian speakers here, but the word, correct me if I'm wrong, but the word for house in Russian is dom, correct? If that's correct, if the word for home in Russian is dom, then that sounds a lot like home and dome. Your home is supposed to be your dome, and you're supposed to feel safe inside your home. And you shouldn't have to feel like at any moment people can be in front of your house harassing you. That should not be allowed. That shouldn't be a thing, regardless of your ideology. So I was correct about the word dome. Okay, good. So regardless of your ideology, you shouldn't be harassed. You just shouldn't happen, because when you go home, that should be your sanctuary. People who break into other people's homes are put into prison for a reason, because you are violating a person's sacred space, and that space should be considered sacred. When you break into someone's house to rob their stuff, I think that not only should you be arrested and tried and prosecuted, I think that if you are found guilty, you should be given the death penalty. Call me crazy, call me sick, cynical, whatever, but I think if you break into someone's house to rob them, or for any other reason, you break into someone's home, you want to rob their stuff, you want to put people at gunpoint, put a gun on some guy's wife's head, harass them, terrify the kids because the husband's not home. I think if you do crimes like that, I think if you are found guilty, you should be given the death penalty. You'll say, but what about, but it's not a death-worthy crime because they didn't kill anybody. Well, I think if you start killing robbers, if the government starts to kill robbers and give them capital punishment, I think people will be robbing less, because they're going to say it's not worth it. You'll end up dead if you get caught. But that's a side issue. So I was thinking to myself, do I really want to be super famous? Do I really want millions of people watching my videos? Or do I really want even hundreds of thousands of people watching my videos? Do I really want... Because I'm kind of a controversial person. I have controversial opinions. And I've had controversial opinions for a long time. Now, there was a time in my life for a number of years when I was not famous, but I had a much larger following than I do now. So in the years 2013, 14, the years 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, in those years, I had my biggest audiences. And my audience really started to grow in 2013, and then it just continued to grow, and we really blew up in, I want to say, mid to late 2014. And then we really, really blew up. We blew up even more in 2015 and 2016. And then in 2017, we still had a pretty decently sized audience, but it began to slowly decline. I think once Trump entered office. And then in 2018, it just crashed. But in those clusters, in that cluster of years, I had the biggest audience that I've ever had. And so what happened? Like, why was I getting so many people? Well, because we were posting a lot of really graphic headlines, and we were using a lot of graphic cover photos, and I knew how to get a high click rate. It's just a fact. I studied other websites. I looked at other websites. I looked at websites like Breitbart, and I saw how those websites were doing things, and I noticed that they were doing things in a certain way that got them a lot of clicks. And I thought, well, how do I get that same rate of clicks? And I began to find stories. I mean, it was all over the news. It wasn't that difficult to find these stories, but I would find these stories of just horrific acts of brutality done by Islamic groups in Syria and Iraq, and I would just, when I would write my headlines, I would just describe exactly what happened. So if there was a massacre in some village in Syria, I would describe the massacre in the headline, and that got tons of people to click on my articles. And then for example, if I wanted to write a really intellectual article, I wouldn't just write the intellectual article and then post the article with a headline that was based on my article. I would write my article, finish it, and then before publishing it, I would go on the news and I would try to find the most graphic story that I could find. And I would write on the graphic story first, then put my article underneath that graphic story, and then the headline would be about the graphic story. And then what I would do is I would write about the graphic story, or I would just post some excerpts from an article on the graphic story, and then I would write a paragraph and find a way to make the graphic story connect with my article. And of course, the graphic story would pertain to some extent to the subject matter that I was writing on. So I would make sure to write the transition to my article, and then that would guarantee tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people reading my article, or at least seeing the first part of the article, because sometimes people would start reading the article and then get bored and then leave. But still, I managed to get a lot of people to read my articles using that strategy. And so it was really effective. So I had a lot of people, millions of people reading our website, shootbot.com. I had tons of people looking at the YouTube channel that I had at the time. It was a lot of fun, I'm not going to lie. And a lot of people were writing me, and a lot of people were just interested in what I had to say. And the problem was that I would get too many weirdos on our website. And they would come and they would write the most ridiculous comments, a lot of blasphemous stuff, a lot of perverted stuff would be expressed in these comments, and it was just getting too much, and we were having to block a whole bunch of people, and it just wouldn't stop. It just went on and on and on. And then my Facebook page, my public Facebook page, had a lot of followers, much more than it does now, and I got a lot of weirdos in that page as well. So it just wouldn't stop. And I mean, was it cool to get a lot of people reading my work? Yes, it was great. Was it cool to see my analytics for my website and to read that my website was getting millions of views? Yeah, it was awesome. It felt amazing. It felt great. But what I didn't like was all of the negative attention. And there was a time when I was getting a lot of death threats. And all of the death threats were coming from gay activists, homosexuals, all the time. I would get the weirdest death threats. And they would get into explicit detail about how they wanted to kidnap me and torture me and kill me in the most horrendous ways. And I would just block those people, but nothing happened. Because let's be real, death threats are sort of bullshit. If someone's going to kill you, they're going to do it. They're not going to let you know. But death threats they're not good. You know, they're harassing, they're intrusive, and they can be psychologically corrosive. But it was just a lot of negative attention. I was getting way too much negative attention. So once the popularity for my website declined and I was getting less attention, it sucked to get less attention. It sucked to get less views and less readers, but I got more peace, to be honest with you. Isn't a death threat a felony? I don't think so, no. I could be wrong about that. I don't know. Harassing family members is less harassment to embarrass someone and more than about sending a message. Well, of course, but it's just immoral nonetheless. What about the German word house? Yeah, absolutely. It's connected to the English word. Or someone... There's a lot of overlap between German and English, but I think there's more overlap between... From what I have seen, I think there's tremendously more overlap between English and Swedish. I think out of all the European languages, the language that is closest to English is Swedish. If you don't believe me, just go on Google Translate and write down a sentence in English and have it translated into Swedish, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's even the way that we structure our sentences is very close to how they do so in Swedish. Now, I've heard it said that there's a lot of similarity between Spanish and English, and of course, there's similarity between Spanish and English. There's similarity between all the languages that are rooted in Indo-European or Proto-Indo-European. But English and Spanish are almost completely different. They're very different from each other. And a lot of that has to do with the way that Spanish language speakers structure their sentences. In English, we just go, I will go home. I'm going to go home. It's linear. In Swedish, it's the same thing. They say it in a linear way. In Spanish, it's to the home I go. Like, they just reverse way too much. Or they use one word that can express what it takes 3 words for us to communicate. So... Spanish is a very annoying language. I don't like the Spanish language. I mean, it sounds nice, but overall, I don't like the way that Spanish is structured. I think it's very annoying and tedious, but most languages are annoying and tedious. Arabic is also very annoying and tedious, but English is a very practical language, and from what I've seen, Swedish is also a very practical language, and if you speak English, you can pick up Swedish, I think, pretty easily. Because, like I said, in Swedish, just go on Google Translate if you don't believe me, and type in a sentence in English and see how it looks in Swedish. If the words may not be completely similar, but the structure of the sentences are very much like how we structure sentences in English. Spanish is like Yoda, exactly. I remember watching Wally Chubot in the early days of YouTube. Your father made a great sacrifice. That's correct. Yeah, we had a lot of attention. You will become famous in the next 10 to 20 years when your predictions start manifesting. Maybe, we'll see. You were more provocative. I was very provocative. Very provocative. And I would go out of my way to provoke people, especially people who were pro-Sodom, like hardcore. And I would provoke gay conservatives. I would just provoke all of them. Insult all of them. The whole thing. Threat is a classic C misdemeanor. There you go. Yeah.